I feel very well set up today for this beginning of this series. Very set up for an opportunity for us to explore what I'm calling the limitless harvest. I believe that there's a limitless harvest in this universe. And today's message goes into how we prepare the way and have a Miracle-Gro consciousness for this limitless harvest. And I think it's very fitting because it's Thanksgiving and it comes with all sorts of images of the fall and all that goes with that and the opportunities to come together and be thankful and see the limitless energy of the universe. And yet I know that the holiday itself can be filled with an interesting energy and questionable awareness of the history of Thanksgiving. And yet the key center to me for the holiday here in the U.S., because we celebrate it here in the U.S. at this time, but Canada celebrates it, I believe, in October, is the opportunity to be thankful. And that's something worth fighting for. And there's an element of everything in life, I think, that has its goodness and its graciousness and its beauty, and also at the same time can have its, hey, that's not so great, and that's not so beautiful, that's not so wonderful. And I think Thanksgiving, the holiday itself, can be like that if we pay attention to it. But I look for some of the threads of good and look for the opportunity to say it's always good to give thanks. And there was a woman that I discovered in some of my research about Thanksgiving as I've been educating myself that I had no idea she even existed. John France is a historian who wrote about this beautiful woman, and her name was Sarah Josepha Buell Hale. She was born in 1788. She spent 26 years writing endless stream of letters and newspaper editorials to campaign for the holiday here in the U.S. She was the editor of Godey's Ladies Book, the most widely read ladies magazine in the U.S. at the time, in the mid-1800s, with a circulation of 150,000, which seems huge to me. And she just kept writing Thanksgiving letters to ex-presidents and to leaders in our country, saying we need to take time to give thanks. We need to stop. And so to stop and say thank you. She was a strong advocate for this. And finally, in 1863, it was President Lincoln who declared the last Thursday of the month of November as a national holiday for us to stop and say thanks. And many historians believe it was largely due to those countless letters that she wrote. She took a stand, a huge stand, for gratitude and thanksgiving. And I'm inviting us today to consider taking a huge stand like that ourselves. Now, I know that part of how the holiday can be experienced is through family. I love how Deepak Chopra says to us, if you want to see how spiritual you really are, go spend time with your family. I know that can be a part of it, and I know that these last few years with COVID and the pandemic, we've had strange holidays, so some of us are really looking forward to time with family possibly, or more time alone, or however that looks for us. I love how the comedian Conan O'Brien says the Department of Transportation has indicated that many Americans are going to travel 100 miles or more this year to be with family, and then they're going to spend Thanksgiving giving thanks for the fact that they live 100 miles away from their family. But it is really about understanding that we have an opportunity in the coming days and weeks to really anchor ourselves in that limitless abundance that is always pouring forth. And the metaphor that we use often for this, and that our founder Ernest Holmes even used quite frequently, was the metaphor of a garden or a plot of land, an opportunity to see how nature grows forth into creation, plants and trees and bushes and flowers and weeds and even stinkweed, weeds we don't like, and weeds that we find to be ugly or beautiful, that a plot of land left unattended will just grow and will just thrive, and things will begin to flourish. And our earth was probably much like that until we humans came along, and we've worked the land to build fields where we can grow food for ourselves. And we've worked the land in some ways that haven't been pleasant, I don't think, for our beautiful earth. And there are places where we've worked the land and made it beautiful and built beautiful structures or dwellings for us to live in. But if we hadn't done that, if we hadn't made space for that, the land would just grow wild. It would just be lots of growth happening, lots of things coming forth into creation. And I think that a life is often like that. Next week, we're going to talk about growing in a very specific way and recognizing that we're always growing our life, that this energy is always happening, that if we don't tend to our life, guess what happens also? Things grow, conditions arise, challenges come up, people show up, things happen that we did not plan on. And so we're going to talk about next week the difference between designing your life by design or by default. And I recognize this very clearly in our front yard. We were enjoying in this house that my husband Ken and I purchased, going out into this front patch of land for a while in our front yard to sit and socialize with people. And we had put little furniture out there, but there were little bushes and little trees and weeds would pop up, and we'd have to make way. Otherwise, we were constantly walking through them. And eventually, we had to say, we intend to have a front porch. And in order to have a front porch, we're going to have to clear away some of this shrubbery that's growing. We're going to have to relocate plants and make way for it. And when we did, and we got the ground set, and Ken designed it, and he built a beautiful front porch for us, and the mess went away. But we had to consciously choose to do that. And you and I and our life are exactly the same. And part of what happens to us is we say and tell ourselves we're too busy, we don't have enough energy, we don't know what to do, and we let our life just fall into default, and then the stinkweeds show up. You know who they are. The challenges, the conditions, the situations show up in our life that we didn't expect, that we look at and we say, I don't remember calling this in. I don't remember saying yes to this mess, but it's there. And when it's there, we have an opportunity, just like any gardener does, to say, I didn't really want to grow that. I want to clear that. I want to pull that weed, or I want to plant something new in this patch of land, or I want to grow something completely different here. But we have to take it on consciously and powerfully, and not just kind of throw our hands up and say, okay, whatever. There's this great teaching story about a farmer who bought a farm that had not been tended to for a long time and worked very hard to till the land and till the soil and get the land prepared and began to grow things. And the local preacher came to visit him, and they were sitting out on the porch. And the preacher looked out at the land and he said, my goodness, this is beautiful land that God has created. And the farmer said, well, you should have seen it when God had it to himself. And that's really it. We could say that about ourselves. If we don't pay attention, if we don't stay connected to our own life and take advantage of the fact that there is this limitless harvest that is always seeking expression through us, and that when we stop and do the hard work that a gardener has to do to grow it, we give it attention, we give it time, and we give it that horrible D word, discipline. When we want to grow something good in our life, we need to create all of that to allow it to come forth. That's part of what we do here at Mile High Church. Coming to church, taking classes, working with our practitioners, doing all the things that we can. That's part of the discipline part of choosing to have a life where we are tending to the garden of our experience. And we're recognizing and owning that we're a part of this co-creative process, just like any great gardener is, to grow and tend to the garden of our experience. And what a joy that is. And there's a secret that many gardeners have, a product that they use to grow things that they would like to intend to grow more strongly. It's a product that's sold in pretty much every garden store, and it's called Miracle-Gro, right? Miracle-Gro is this wonderful all-purpose plant food. And so today, the Miracle-Gro consciousness I'm bringing is not in a little package like that, but it's in a package of this message that has 3 components to it that I suggest that if we practice them, and there are going to be 3 components I'm sure we've all heard before, but given that it's Thanksgiving week, to take advantage of the limitless harvest and prepare the soil for the good of our life that we choose to bring forth, we're going to ask and invite everyone to practice these 3 things. And of course, the first one is gratitude. It's just gratitude for the process, for the opportunity that we have to be in this beautiful energy of the growing good that flows into our lives. Even giving thanks for the weeds that show up and being willing to see that a weed helps me get more intentional. Being clear about, I have to do my part. I have a beautiful office next door in the building that we have here, and it was decorated beautifully by a friend of mine named Amy, who lives in Phoenix. And before she left to go back to Phoenix, she said to me, I really think you need some plants in this office. You need some greenery, some live plants. And so Karen Thomas helped me, and we went out and we got 2 plants. I call them Lucy and Ethel, after Lucille Ball and Ethel Mertz. And I talk to them frequently, and they're right in front of my desk. And every once in a while, I'm working away and I'm being so busy, and I look up and I see these beautiful, thriving plants, and I am so grateful. And I've been so grateful that they've stayed thriving during the pandemic when we weren't in the office. Joel Dash, our wonderful safety manager here, he watered my plants for me every week because I wasn't there to do it. And Karen Thomas takes care of them for me sometimes when I'm traveling. People help me. And that's the thing. I'm so grateful for the plants. I'm grateful for the assistance. And I think when we're growing a garden that we want to see the limitless abundance, we give thanks for all the people who help us grow our garden. Because as Eddie was singing, none of us have to do this alone. We're with each other, we're connected to each other, and there are plenty of people on this planet, I don't know if you've noticed, plenty of people who I think if we reached out would help us grow anything. And if we've been helped this last year, giving gratitude to those people, giving thanks to those people is one of the best things we can do. To make a list, a deep list of things we're grateful for, people we're grateful for, experiences that we're grateful for. As Josh said in the opening, the wholeness of our life, not just the good things, but even the challenging things that have deepened us or caused us to have a greater sense of the realities of our life. I found this wonderful list that Ann Landers published years ago from an unknown author that I'd like to share. Things to be thankful for. Be thankful for the clothes that fit a little too snug because it means you have enough to eat. Be thankful for the mess you clean up after a party because it means you've been surrounded by friends. Be thankful for the taxes you pay because it means you're employed. Be thankful that your lawn needs mowing and your windows need fixing because it means you have a home. Be thankful for your heating bill because it means you are warm. Be thankful for the laundry because it means you have clothes to wear. Be thankful for the space you find at the far end of the parking lot because it means you can walk. Be thankful for the lady who sings off key behind you in church because it means you can hear. Be thankful people complain about our government because it means we have freedom of speech. And be thankful for the alarm that goes off in the early morning hours because it means you're alive. So it's a twist, it's a willingness to expand into a deep sense of gratitude for the little things we see in the garden that are growing, that we've been part of, and we know that we're in that co-creative space, and we can give thanks. And everything in science right now, everything about brain science talks about how gratitude isn't some just nice woo-woo, new thought, new age concept. It literally has an impact nervous system, it has an impact on our consciousness, it has an impact on our mood, it has an impact on everything. So this week of Thanksgiving, of course, practice gratitude. It's Miracle-Gro for our lives. The next element of Miracle-Gro is faith. And actually, before I go there, I want to share Matt Kahn. I have another one from Matt Kahn that I love. Here's a photo of it. If you thank your mind, it will relax. If you thank your heart, it will open. If you thank your past, it will integrate. If you thank your symptoms, they will heal. If you thank your shadow, it will vanish. If you thank your life, it will transform. If you thank yourself, the light will dawn. Beautiful, Matt Kahn. So the next part, faith. This is one of my favorite parts of the co-creative process. I imagine being a farmer seeking to grow food for our nation and standing before a big plot of land and knowing that as I have tilled the soil and planted the seeds, I can have absolute confidence that what I planted is going to grow. And we teach here in this teaching that this is true of us, that the plot of land is our life, and that we are planting seeds continuously with our words and our thoughts and our actions. We are living our faith out every day. With where we dwell in our mind, we are planting seeds of acceptance of what we want to grow more of in our life and in our collective garden. And that if we are going to be conscious gardeners, we have to have faith in that process, and we have to plant those seeds consciously. A farmer would never stand before that plot of land and have planted wheat, but then stand back and pray and hope that God will reward him or her with carrots. Because they know that's not how it works. But how often are we tempted to do that? How often do we repeatedly plant fear and anger and limitation and lack and upset and resentment, but hope that God will override what we've planted and still give us lots of love and grace? It doesn't work like that. We're part of the process. And so we have to live our faith out in action by being willing to understand that I am going to plant consciously and have faith just as I would if I planted in the ground on our beautiful earth, that which I am planting is coming forth into creation, and trust the limitless harvest that is expressing itself through me. Our founder, Ernest Holmes, says, when I go out and plant a garden, I walk away and leave it, and I know something is going to make it grow. Its growth, the law of its being, that which is going to react to it out of the universe now, is independent even of myself. Though I planted it, I was the gardener only. We speak of making a garden. We plant one. Nature, bless you. Nature makes the garden. God gives the increase. That's the limitless harvest. God, the law, always growing on our behalf. And so as things come forth, the gardener learns, oh, there's weeds. I need to tend to my garden. Oh, a stray plant got in over here that I don't want. I need to tend. They don't stand there weeping and bemoaning and saying, oh my God, why did you grow these weeds here? But we do that with our lives, don't we? Oh my God, why is this happening to me? And while that feeling can be a feeling we move through, let us move through it into an awareness that once we are through it, we recognize I am the co-creator of my garden, and I am going to stop and take a look at the genesis of the seeds that I have planted or co-planted or been feeding and nurturing with my energy, and I'm going to make changes. I may need to cease the thoughts and actions. I may need to pray more affirmatively towards the direction that I want. I may need to forgive. I may need to let go, but I'm going to do the work that I must do. I'm going to take care of the garden because I have my part to do. His Holiness the Dalai Lama says there is sometimes a tendency to think of the spiritual life as primarily introspective, divorced from the concerns of everyday life and society. Faith that does not translate into actions is no faith at all. So we don't get to just sit back and go, my life, let's just see what happens. Or we can choose that, but then we just get to flow with it. We get to be an active part of it and living our faith out every day by tilling the soil and feeding the garden and being willing to be an active part of it. That's living our faith out. And lastly, patience. Patience. Some of the best gardeners in the world who grow the most unique plants will plant something and it will take years for that bulb to root and then grow, and they have such patience. We also sometimes have to have patience. And what I notice about us is that our impatience sometimes looks like we don't have enough faith. We're not sure that the process works, and so we get impatient about it. And then some of us who've been a part of this teaching for a while, who've been somewhat successful in being an active co-creator in the garden of our life, we get impatient when what we've planted, well, I did that treatment yesterday. Why isn't it here today? I know how to do this. I don't understand. I've been thinking good thoughts. I've been affirming. What the heck is going on here? And we get really impatient because we think we've done the work. And we have to step back and find patience with ourselves and look at ourselves and be willing to continue to be persistent, like that gardener is about their gardener, or that farmer is about their farm. I had an issue many years ago in thinking about this that I'm still sometimes working on. This was back in the late 80s, so it's taken me many years. And it was that I was a practitioner here at Mile High Church, and I was attending the ministerial school. And one of the things that I got to do as a practitioner was to go sit by the bedside of people who were ill. But what would happen to me, I noticed, is that I would go into a hospital or a hospice or even a home, and if there was an ill person there or someone I believed was suffering, I would feel sick to my stomach, my knees would get really weak, and sometimes I felt like I was going to faint because I just couldn't handle. There was so much what I perceived to be pain in those environments, and I felt like I could feel everyone's pain. And I would walk into the bedside of someone, and I would have the hardest time seeing the God of them. All I could see were the tubes and the blood and the unhealthiness of what was going on, and I was very caught up in the condition. And I was getting very irritated with myself about this because I really wanted to be of service. And at that same time, I was dating a man named Jim, and Jim had through a sports injury, hurt himself and ended up with a blood clot in his leg. And guess where he was? In the hospital. And I had to go visit him in the hospital. I remember at one point having to leave his room and sitting out in the hallway, just shaking because I just had the hardest time being there. And he got out of the hospital, and I was so grateful for all sorts of reasons. And they put him on a blood thinner, and it helped him a lot. But one of the side effects of the blood thinners was he would just get a bloody nose whenever. Now, I can promise you, if anyone here started bleeding, you don't want me to take care of you, right? I'm not good at that. I just am not. My sister was an EMT, and I never knew how she did it, but she was strong and could make it happen. But me, no. As soon as his nose would start to bleed, I would be like, oh, I can't look. I was no help whatsoever, the poor guy. And it was Thanksgiving. And he and I watched Thanksgiving Day, a Broncos game, of course. And then we had reservations at Sims Landing Steakhouse. And we went for Thanksgiving meal, and we're sitting there with our beautiful plates full of food. And I've never had a bloody nose in my life. I don't know if they hurt or not, but I look over, and guess what? Jim's bleeding. And this time, I looked right at him and went right down into my Thanksgiving dinner. My face just fell into my Thanksgiving dinner. I passed out completely. And Jim is getting napkins, I'm sure. I couldn't see, but I kind of started coming to, and I was trying to breathe myself back. And I hear the waiter saying to Jim, "Sir, I think you need to go to the restroom. You're bleeding profusely." And I hear Jim, to his credit, saying, "I don't want to leave my girlfriend. I don't know what's wrong with her." And so the waiter brings him an ice pack, and I can hear Jim going, "Okay, what is she breathing? Is she breathing?" And I'm there going, trying to breathe myself back to consciousness. And finally, Jim's nose stops bleeding, and I finally get myself to sit up. I got enough oxygen going and wiped all the mashed potatoes and turkey off my face. I'm sure I looked beautiful. The whole restaurant had stopped, right? Everything was just silent. And so Jim finally is no longer bleeding, and I'm fine. And I look over, and there's a table next to us, and there's a little girl just going. just watching the whole thing happening. I was so embarrassed, though, that I couldn't even withstand this bloody nose. And I've had to be so patient with myself, and I've had to practice this over the years, to be thankful that I believe this infliction is that I'm so empathic, that I can feel people's pain. And that's sort of a good news, bad news thing for those of us who are empaths, right? We can feel the pain of the person sitting next to us. We can feel the pain of humanity at times as people are suffering. We can feel the pain of people who have injustice happen to them. We can feel the pain of the world. And I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful because I can feel connected. I can have faith in myself that I can, even in the midst of pain, feel the power and the presence that is pouring itself through me and stand strong. And I can be patient with myself even when I falter. Because I was recently in a doctor's appointment with my husband, and they were talking about something in his shoulder, and I'm kind of going, oh, here it comes again. Breathe. But I've learned how to handle it. I have now, over the years, been able to be at the bedside of people, be with people who are passing away, be in process. And gosh, being a parent helped a lot. Watching your kid fall down and scrape his knee and hit his head and do all that has helped me learn to get past it to some degree. But I'm growing a garden where I'm taking that challenge or that weakness that I think I've had and using it to strengthen myself and recognizing that maybe it's part of the gift that I am. And that we can all look at those challenges in our life and understand that the limitless harvest is growing through us, and sometimes those weeds that show up are great gifts that strengthen us and grow us. So this week, give thanks, have faith, be patient with yourself and other people. And I'd like to close with a wonderful reading that is not attributed to anyone that I can find, but I find it to be beautiful and lovely and so true. It says, life is amazing, and then it's awful. And then it's amazing again. And in between the amazing and the awful, it's ordinary and routine. So breathe in the amazing. Hold on through the awful. Relax and exhale during the ordinary, because that's what it means to be alive, and it's breathtakingly beautiful.